Good morning, everybody, and welcome. So we're just admitting everybody now. We just want to let all of our participants in. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I think we've all of our participants have joined us now. So welcome. My name is Paula Carroll. I am the chair of the Euro Wisdom Committee and the Wisdom Forum. Today, our Young Women for OR webinar is on supply chain management under uncertainty. So this is one of our visibility initiatives. We're recording this webinar and it will be posted on our YouTube channel. So just a little bit of etiquette reminders. While the speakers are speaking, the rest of us will stay on mute with our cameras off. We'll go through our sequence of speakers. I'll explain who they are now in a second, and we have our subject matter expert. We'll wait for the end for questions, so we won't interrupt the talks with the questions. So just to move along. There we go. As I said, today is a Young Women for OR webinar. This is one of our Wisdom Visibility initiatives. And I think I've skipped my slide here. Just for those of you who don't know what Wisdom is, it's a Euro forum to promote and empower and support and encourage the participation of all genders in operations research, particularly within Euro. So these are our three objectives, the things that we're trying to achieve. So to try and help the working groups and the national societies with recommendations about how they can support women in OR. This today is part of our championing and promoting networking for women at the early stages of their career in OR. And we do have an agenda about promoting a conversation about how we use OR for a diverse and inclusive future. So one of our visibility initiatives supporting young women at the early stages of their career is this Young Women for OR initiative. So you can see our 12 awardees. They will all have an opportunity to present a webinar during the year, but they'll also hopefully join us at Euro for some special sessions and some other activities. So you can see our young women here in the green boxes. We have today's speakers, so Özlem and Maria and Kelly will be talking today. And our special subject matter expert, a huge thank you for making time in her very busy diary. We have Professor Grit Walther from Aachen School of Business. So we're very, very pleased that her expertise, she's going to share it with us today. So that is about all I want to say. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker. So Özlem is first. So Özlem, if you want to start sharing your slides, and Özlem is going to talk to us about sustainable CO2 synthetic gas supply chain design under uncertainty. So Özlem, you have 10 minutes if you want to put your slides into full screen there.
Mm-hmm.
Go.
Yeah. Can you see right now?
We can hear and we can see. So we're looking forward to your talk, Özlem. Off you go.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much. Yeah, hello everyone. I am Özlem Mahmutoğulları. I am a postdoctoral researcher in the Operations Management Group at Eindhoven University of Technology. And I am working on designing a supply chain for a product that is produced based on a new technology. And today I would like to present this work to you. As you know, in the recent years, the environmental concerns have increased. And one of the main root causes of these environmental concerns is the huge amount of greenhouse gas emissions. So to mitigate the greenhouse gas emissions, many countries have set targets for their greenhouse gas emissions levels. For example, Europe set a target of reaching the carbon neutrality by 2050. Yes, this is an ambitious target. It will not be easy to reach this target. Yeah, however, there are some already major sustainable technologies for some sectors to decarbonize them. For example, alternative fuel vehicles for the small vehicles, right? For the route transportation sectors. However, for other sectors, it will be difficult to decarbonize them. And these sectors are called the hard-to-abate sectors. For example, the road transportation for heavy-duty trucks, maritime and aviation transportation, steel and cement industry, and chemical industry are called hard-to-abate sectors. And for the chemical industry, I can say that currently it is not possible to decarbonize it. because chemical sector use the carbon element from the fossil sources in its reactions. However, it is possible to defossilize it because the current carbon element comes from the fossil sources. If we can eliminate these fossil sources during the processes, then it will be possible to defossilize the chemical industry. So in this purpose, the carbon capture utilization technologies arise. And these technologies suggest to use the carbon from CO2 from a sustainable source to replace the carbon from the fossil fuels. So in this work, we focus on producing syngas by using CO2 electrolysis technology, which is one of the carbon capture and utilization technology. And by the CO2 technology, CO2 electrolysis technology, carbon will be captured from the air or from the flue gases of the point sources, and then carbon will be utilized at the electrolyzers. And to produce syngas, the carbon and water are electrolyzed together, and the syngas is produced. Syngas is a synthesis gas, which is a mixture of hydrogen and carbon monoxide, and it can be used as a feedstock to produce materials like plastics, textiles, or fuels like methanol and hydrocarbon fuels. And these hydrocarbon fuels can be also jet fuels. So if we will be able to make the syngas sustainable, then we also know that it will contribute to the environmental sustainability of the aviation transportation too. So in this purpose, we would like to introduce to the CO2-based syngas to the chemical industry and to support its adoption by the chemical industry. And we want to make a supply chain design for the CO2-based syngas. In the supply chain network of the syngas, there are CO2 sources, electrolysis plants, and syngas demand sites. CO2 is captured at CO2 sources, and then CO2 is transported via pipelines to the electrolysis plants. There, water and CO2 are electrolyzed together, syngas is produced, and then syngas is transported to the syngas demand sites to be consumed later. There is one disadvantage related to electrolysis technology, because electrolysis technology is energy intensive. So we need to pay special attention to the electricity consumed at the electrolysis plants. For example, if the electrolyzers are only connected to the grids, due to the high carbon footprint level of the grid electricity, it may be possible to emit more CO2 than we utilized. Yes, we can make some investments in renewable sources, and all of these electricity that comes from the renewable sources can be used at the electrolysis plants. However, in this case, due to the intermittency in the renewable electricity supply, we may need to switch on and off the electrolyzers frequently, and it will lead to high degradation and low performance. So we suggest the employment of electricity from the grids and renewable sources at electrolysis plants. And to increase the utilization of the renewable electricity, we also allow battery installations at the electrolysis plants. Yeah, in the light of this, we can define our problem. Yes, there is a supply chain network with the set of CO2 sources, set of syngas demand sites, and set of potential locations for electrolysis plants. And we make decisions over a multi-period planning horizon. We consider a planning horizon of the 20 years and with 4 periods. And at the beginning of the planning horizon, strategic decisions are taken. For example, the plant locations, plant sizes, the investments in renewable sources, investments in batteries, and the pipeline infrastructure for the transportation of CO2 and syngas. And at the beginning of each period, some capacity expansion decisions can be taken. And in each period, to satisfy the annual demands of the syngas demand sites, we need to decide electricity consumption amounts, production amounts, and transportation amounts. And all of these decisions result in costs. In addition to these decisions, we also take a decision regarding the price of the product, because this product will be newly introduced to the market. Moreover, we also decide in each period which set of demand sites will be served. And in the objective, we maximize the profits to support the economic sustainability of the products. Since maximizing profit can favor maximizing revenue and as a result the price, we also consider the relationship between the demand and price. So for example, we consider a relationship as the price increases, demand decreases. And we consider a possible price range for the product and we discretize the prices. So for each price level chosen, there is a corresponding demand at the demand sides. In the light of this, we can formulate the problem. So in the objective, we maximize the profit by considering the time value of the money. And in the constraints, we say that, yes, if a demand side is served, its full demand should be satisfied. And one of the price levels can be chosen for the product. And in the other constraints, we have constraints for the global warming potential of the electricity consumed at the electrolyzers. We have constraints for the CO2 and electricity supply, and also the facilities where plants are capacitated. And we have also constraints for the infrastructure and transportation amounts. Here in the objective and the constraints, we have bilinear terms because we have binary variables for the demand sides, if they are satisfied or not, and for the price level chosen, if it is chosen or not. So we linearize these bilinear terms by defining a new set of decision variables, and we propose a mixed integer linear programming model for the problem. However, yes, if we have a full knowledge about all of the parameters, we can use this model for the deterministic setting. But in our problem, we expect many uncertainties because the product will be newly introduced to the markets and it has no historical market demand data. Additionally, there are uncertain government regulations and we expect that the demand for the product will be highly affected by the government regulations. So we consider the demand uncertainty and we define the demand uncertainty sets for the possible demand realizations. We employ interval model for the demand realizations. So for example, in this figure, the uncertainty set is depicted. So there is a corresponding nominal demand for each price level and the demand realizations may deviate from this nominal demand at some rates. So we incorporate our demand uncertainty set into the deterministic model. We obtain the robust counterpart of the problem, and in the objective, we maximize the minimum profit that can be obtained. And in the constraints, we want to have a supply chain design that is feasible under all demand realizations. So due to the advantages of the interval model, because it is linear and bounded, we can easily linearize the objective function and the maximization in the constraints. And we obtain a mixed integer linear programming for the robust model.
Özlem, we're just at 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and we performed computational experiments on the Benelux area to show the value of considering uncertainty and to detect some key parameters, how can affect the supply chain design. And in computational experiments, we showed the considering uncertainty can be really valuable. And the governmental financial support levels are really important. So as a result, in this work, we propose a sustainable supply chain design for the product to support its adoption by the chemical industry. And we show the value of considering uncertainty and the value of some parameters in the supply chain design. So thank you very much for listening. Sorry, I didn't expect to exceed the time, but yeah.
Thank you, Özlem. I'm sorry to have rushed you. That was absolutely intriguing. I was taking some notes there. It's a lot of really interesting and challenging and very real practical applications. You'll be all delighted to hear that you can hear more about Özlem's work at Euro. So she'll be presenting at Euro. We will have more opportunities to hear about her work. We won't take questions now. Thank you, Özlem. What we're going to do is we're going to move on to Maria. We'll take Maria's talk and then we'll have questions at the end. Thank you, Özlem. So Maria, if you're ready. Great. So Maria, again, 10 minutes for you. Whenever you're ready, you can start. So just unmute yourself there.
Hello, everyone. Now you can hear me. So my name is Maria. I'm from the University of Lisbon, and I have been working on blood supply chain management. Today, I will present you the work regarding the reactive-proactive rescheduling in blood supply chain management. Okay, so I will start by briefly presenting the blood supply chain. It is composed by a sequence of activities from donors to patients, and these activities are mainly the collection of donations, the production of these donations into blood products, the storage of these donations in the blood centers, but also in the demand nodes to fulfill the patient's demand, and also the distribution between the facilities. There are some crucial factors that make this supply chain complex to manage. First off, blood is irreplaceable, so we can't swap some products to replace when it runs low. Also, hospitals rely on the constant supply for patient care that creates a high service level requirements. Because there are no substitutes, good planning is essential for patient well-being. Then we also have the perishability issue. So a blood donation has these really tight windows, just 6 hours from collection to production. And if it is not processed within that time window, it needs to be discarded. It cannot be used. And also, after they are processed into blood products, they have also a limited shelf life. Another layer of complexity is the fact that both supply and demand are uncertain. So on the supply side, it relies entirely on volunteer donations, which fluctuate depending on the time of year or holidays, for instance. And at the same time, on the demand side, we have scheduled surgeries, but we also have medical emergencies and different medical needs that are constantly changing. So putting all of this together, so the fact that it is irreplaceable, short shelf life, uncertain supply and demand, and also the fact that we have multiple blood types and different compatibilities among them, it becomes clear why having good planning decisions is important to give decision makers clarity and ultimately help improve the entire supply chain. So this brings us to the problem at hand, which we have we can have this master plan, but then real life happens and the circumstance change. So one thing is to have the forecast and the plan activities, and another completely different challenge is to adapt in real time. For instance, if a big upcoming collection session gets canceled, we still have to make sure that the hospitals receive exactly what they need when they need it. So this is the core problem. How to define effective strategies for actually fulfilling demand on a daily basis. So usually the reactive measures that they can use to do so, to respond to demand are often costly, and they can also undermine the confidence and the trust that with key partners. So to tackle this specific issue, so managing the daily disturbances, we developed this model called Blood OBE, which stands for operational, designed for a network of blood centers that uses both real-time information and also anticipated disturbances. The ultimate goal is to ensure that the actual demand for blood products is met while minimizing nervousness, which basically is the cost of making frequent changes to the plan activities, and also minimize the waste of blood. So it's about responding effectively, but also trying to keep things stable and avoid unnecessary changes and also avoid waste. The model uses information about the baseline plan, so the master plan, which includes the available resources, the staff capacity, the calendar of the collection sessions, and other operational constraints to optimize the rescheduling strategy that costs the least. Then it includes updates in two ways. So reactively, it looks at the actual inventory levels at time zero, and then proactively, it considers things that are expected to happen. For instance, update the donor turnout for upcoming sessions, revise the demand requirements from hospitals, any changes to the staff availability or in the calendar for the coming weeks. Then the model can make some decisions in response to these disturbances. So for collection sessions, it can decide to delay them, to bring them forward, or even cancel. It can also add new ones and also determine the necessary notification periods for any of these changes. It can also influence the collection methods used, since we have the apheresis collection method, which yields more blood products than the whole blood donations. It can also hire additional staff if needed and adjust the shipments between the blood centers. It can eventually consider the ABO substitutions to fulfill the requests from the demand nodes and even incorporate urgent requests to demand nodes when the network of blood center is not capable of fulfilling the requests. So the priorities of the model are the following. So the one with the heaviest penalty is to fulfill demand. Next is maintaining the target safety stock levels at blood centers. After that, the model tries to stick to the original plan as much as possible, minimizing the nervousness. And finally, the model aims to minimize waste by reducing the number of units that expire before use. Here we have a scheme of the problem and the constraints that we developed. So the proposed model was validating using a case study of the Portuguese network. Currently, there are some challenges since adjustments are largely manual and they rely on limited data and they are mostly reactive, so they occur after the disturbance already happened, which can lead to inefficiencies. To test our model, we tested two scenarios. So the benchmark setting where only reactive transshipment is allowed, meaning there cannot be any proactive changes to the calendar of the collection sessions. And also the full flexibility setting where we have complete operational adaptability, including all the measures that I mentioned before. We ran these scenarios under 3 different initial inventory conditions, so low, medium, and high initial inventory levels. And we also analyzed the penalty costs for falling below the safety stock targets to see how this parameter influences the results. So in the benchmark scenario, the reactive one, the expected demand is met in all the initial inventory conditions, as long as reactive transshipments are allowed. Also, we saw that in the high inventory situation, there is more nervousness because there is a lot more of reactive transshipment than in the other situations where inventory is low. And this is because this inventory was not optimally distributed along the network to begin with, contrary to the other ones, which were already, even though they were lower, they were optimally distributed among blood centers. When looking to the other setting, to the other scenario that we analyzed, so the full flexibility setting, we see that to keep inventory close to the safety stock targets as much as possible, the model chooses to adjust collection dates and also schedule extra collection sessions, especially for the low and the medium inventory situations, and reactive transshipments are reduced to 0. We can see here in these graphs that the collection flexibility, which is represented in the right, in the full flexibility setting, that the collection flexibility is crucial to meet the safety stock targets, because we can see that in the middle of the planning horizon, the inventory levels, which is the green line, it's actually much closer or even above the targets, which are the purple stars. So the main findings of our research was that the reactive transshipment is essential for meeting demand when you cannot change the collection plans, the collection sessions, but reactive transshipments disappear when you do have that flexibility to reschedule the collection sessions. So when you can have proactive measures in place. We also conclude that rescheduling and organizing unplanned collection sessions is crucial for meeting the safety stock targets when we are faced with day-to-day disturbances that naturally occur. However, we can see that if these penalties for meeting the safety stock targets when they are lower, the system becomes more stable, resulting in few unplanned sessions and less frequent rescheduling. So being too strict about maintaining safety stock levels or having them too high may lead to more interventions and instability overall. Another key point is that with high overall inventory, the main focus is to distribute it well among the blood centers. So it's not enough just to have high inventories. We also need to have them in the right place at the right time. And overall, the flexibility in collection scheduling can significantly reduce the reliance on those reactive, last-minute, emergency, and costly shipments. So to conclude, Blood OPE demonstrates that decision makers can effectively implement a tactical master plan, provided that there is this ability to reschedule operations dynamically, improving some key performance indicators such as minimize the network cost, minimize waste, have less waste of blood, and also few reactive transshipments, and keep inventory levels much closer to the targets as it is intended, since it is the blood supply chain. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Maria. Perfectly on time. So well done. Another intriguing presentation. Well done. Maria, we won't take questions now. What we'll do is we'll move on to Kelly, and then we'll come back for questions in a couple of minutes. So Kelly, if you can get your presentation ready there, and you will have 10 minutes as well.
Okay, thanks. Let me share my screen.
Yeah, that's coming up if you just pop it into presentation mode.
Yes. Yeah, let me start.
Yes.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks much
Look,
for the
off you go.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Xiaoyan. You can also call me Kelly. And now I am the lecturer in the University of Southampton. I started my job there in last year. And for today's topic, my topic actually is very similar to Özlem's topic. It's about the carbon capture, utilization, and storage. This is a very innovative technology in recent years to achieve decarbonization, which is called as the CCUS. So I want to explore the value of this technology in the supply chain management. And for my research, I will mainly focus on the problem of the capacity constraint. So I will see how this scheme works under capacity constraint. I will show you more details later. So as we all know, net zero emission, the decarbonization is the common goal, right, for all the countries in the world. So according to the Paris Agreement, decarbonization should be achieved by 2050. So to achieve this common goal, we have a lot of strategies. We have a lot of technologies. Previously, we have like green technology. We have the renewable energy, like the solar energy, the wind energy, and these kind of technologies have been extensively explored in the previous literature. We explored the benefit, the shortcoming of these renewable energies. So since it has been fully explored, so I did not pay attention to this kind of technology. And secondly, we have the carbon offset. That is, we can invest for an environment project to make up for the emissions when we make the production. And this kind of strategy was challenged by a lot of scholars and practitioners because they think that this will let the company has less incentive to make the real effort on decarbonization because they can just invest some money to make up for their emissions. And this technology also has been extensively studied by the previous scholar, and they are all published in the very top, in the leading journals. And for me, I want to focus on this new technology called the carbon capture, utilization, and storage, which is called CCUS. So for this technology, what we want to do is to capture all the emissions before it enters into the atmosphere. So we can achieve decarbonization from the source. And after that, we can transport it, store it, and use it. Previously, we only have the carbon capture and storage. We do not have the utilization. At that time, all the emissions captured will be stored maybe under the ground or under the sea, but it will be strictly limited by the land sources. And also, we will face some risks like the leakage of the carbon. So it may cause some problems. And nowadays, we want to reuse them. We want to use them into some new products. Here, I show you some examples like how to utilize these carbons. For example, in the food supply chain, in the sparkling or in the Coke. Maybe you still remember several years ago in the UK or in the Europe, we faced the supply disruption problem for the carbon, for the CO2 in the food. So if we can utilize CCUS, we can combine the CCUS with the food supply chain. Okay, we can achieve the win-win situation. We can not only reduce the carbon emissions, but also we can resolve supply disruptions of the CO2. And also we can use the CO2 in many other situations, like for the oil and gas industry, we can achieve the enhanced oil recovery. That is, we reuse the CO2 into the extraction process so as to increase the production yield. I will show you more details later on in my paper. Now we know about the value of CCUS, but it also faces a lot of barriers from the economic side and the technical side. From the economic side, of course, it will incur a lot of cost. We need to invest a lot of cost in the equipment and the technology. So for many regions or for many countries where the government did not provide the financial support. For example, for the UK, previously, the government did not provide any support. So those small and medium-sized companies, they are less incentive to invest for this kind of technology. But started from last year, the end of last year, the UK government announced the funding for the local CCUS cluster, which shows the government's support for this product or for this project and this technology. So this topic, I believe, is very promising for the future research. And in terms of the technical barriers, it comes from two sides. First is the carbon emission rate actually is highly volatile because the calculation of the carbon footprint actually is in high uncertainty. And also the emissions will be dependent on the weather, on the materials you used. So we have some uncertainties about the carbon emission. And besides, as I mentioned before, we have the capacity limitation. If we want to store it in the container, or we want to use the pipeline to transport the CO2, it has the limitation for the capacity. And also we have the limitation for the capacity because of the technical problem. We have the injection rate, we have the extraction rate, something like this, and they are all limited by the techniques. So I searched some real world data to support this argument. So we can see that we have the CCUS project in many countries, and for each project, no matter the big one or small one, they have the CCUS capacity problem. So we need to consider this restriction in our model settings. So based on the benefits and shortcomings of the CCUS I mentioned before, so the coming question is whether it is a help or hindrance for the company to invest for CCUS. So overall speaking, we face the trade-offs from two sides. The first trade-off is about the cost. If we invest for CCUS, we need to pay the high investment cost. But if we do not invest for that, we may need to pay some carbon tax to the government. And on the other hand, if we invest for CCUS, we will face the capacity constraint. This may restrict our production, right? And if we do not invest for, and also we can gain some additional value from that. I will show you the details later on. So based on this background, we can have a lot of research questions for different stakeholders in this supply chain. In this supply chain, we mainly have four participants. First is the CCUS provider who provide the CCUS service to the manufacturer. And the manufacturer will make the production and emit some emissions during the production. So the manufacturer can make the decision on whether to invest for CCUS or not. And the government may play the role. They can charge for the carbon tax, or they can provide the carbon subsidy to the manufacturer to incentivize them to use this technology. And the manufacturer will sell the products to the final market. So for different stakeholders, they may care about different problems. So now I have a working paper for this topic, and I mainly focus on the oil and gas industry because this industry accounts for the highest carbon emissions in the world. So if we can solve the carbon emission problem for this specific industry, then we can achieve decarbonization easily. So as I mentioned before, for CCUS, we focus on how to utilize the emissions. So you can see that in the oil and gas industry, we mainly use it for the EOR, the enhanced oil recovery. You can see from in the bottom of this figure. So how it works. Traditionally, if we want to extract the oil from the well, we need some pressure. We need to inject the waters and some gas into the well. And if we can reduce the carbon emissions, it means that we can inject more CO2 into the well and to increase the pressure in the well so as we can derive more oil products from this process. So by using CCUS, by reusing the CO2, we can increase our production yield. So this is the main benefit of CCUS in the oil and gas industries. We can enjoy the additional product, the additional increased production yield in the second period.
Kelly, we're just at 10 minutes.
Okay, so I will show you the main model. Yeah, for my game sequence, I will consider a 2-period game. So in the second period, you can see that we can reuse the emissions and increase our production quantity. So this is the main benefit. And we also consider the capacity constraints in our model settings. You can see that in the CCUS case, we suppose that the real emission rate cannot exceed the capacity limitation, M. So we use the KKT condition to resolve the optimal solutions and derive the equilibriums here. And I do the analysis from 3 dimensions. First is to explore the value of CCUS to eliminate the negative impact of the high emission rate. And also I will explore the value on the manufacturer's productivity and profitability. And on the end, I will explore how it impacts the social welfare. Yeah, I skip the analysis here, but the main result is that the value of CCUS dependent on the production cost. So that it means that for the manufacturer with high production cost, they are more suggested to enhance the EOR rate. And for the manufacturer with the low production cost, they are more recommended to collaborate with a larger scale of the CCUS provider because they can provide the higher CCUS capacity. And we also use some real-world data to do the numerical analysis to prove the findings we derived before.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, just we're so tight on time. So just to your conclusion, yes, thank you.
Yeah, so for the conclusion, again, it's strictly dependent on the product cost, the production cost. For high cost and for low cost, we have different results. The main finding is that the CCUS is more recommended or more valuable for the low cost product compared with high cost product. Yeah, that's the end.
Thank you very much, Kelly. It's a huge challenge when you have such interesting projects to pack everything into 10 minutes. So well done. Thank you very much.
Sorry for not controlling the time.
Well, we'll have an opportunity at Euro to hear more about Kelly's work. So Kelly will be joining us at Euro as well. So we'll invite our 3 young women 4OR if you want to turn back on your cameras. And Grit is our subject matter expert today. Thank you very much, Grit, for taking the time. I don't envy you. They were such varied presentations. So we're just going to pass over to Grit for some observations and comments and maybe some questions back to our young women. Off you go, Grit. So 10-15 minutes, and then we'll come to the participants.
Yes. First, I want to say thank you very much for these really great presentations. I learned a lot. I saw that you're really very motivated and do great work in supply chain management. So I really like that. And also very, very important topics there. I think I go through step by step. I start with Özlem. Özlem, I really like your approach, that you look at a very important topic, using like electrolyzers for producing syngas that can be used for products, also for gasoline and everything. And I also like very much that you use a robust approach because we face so many uncertainties. We recognize that these days even more, so that we really need robust approaches for these long-term and very large investments. I have some methodological questions. You use this very nice price demand function. Looks for modeling, this is very nice to handle. Also has some background to that. I was asking myself, how would you come to such a nice price demand function for such a such a long-term decision with prices changing over time, prices being really dependent on regulation, on competitive pathways, and so on. And especially as this is your main uncertainty, could you maybe tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Yeah, we thought a lot for the price and demand sensitivity, how we can consider it and etc. However, we couldn't find enough information from sources in the literature or from companies or etc. because we have really little knowledge about the syngas today, because syngas is not a merchant product currently. The syngas consumers usually produce it and consume on site. They do not buy or sell it. So we have a really little information about the price of it today, for example, even the fossil-based syngas, and the demand of syngas. We have only some guesses. So instead of having some complex relationship between the price and demand, actually we chose to stay on the simple and basic side. Yeah, because otherwise we had to make such assumptions we cannot justify, for example. Yeah, because there is not enough data we can base on it. Yeah. So we want to be linear, but it gives the area to us to play with it. Yeah. We were sure, yes, as the price increases, the demand decreases, but we choose just linear, simpler relationship because we didn't want to make the problem complex with so much assumptions. Yeah.
But wouldn't you need different price demand functions for different points in time? For instance, if I look at the aviation industry, they have to fulfill these SAF quotas. So I think there will be a very high willingness to pay later in time, but that is not yet there.
Exactly. Yeah, for the different time periods, we still consider that linear relationship. However, we moved this linearity in the graph a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. The structure doesn't change. Yeah. However, parameters in the function changes. Yeah. We consider that, yes, probably it will increase over time because of the aviation fuels and etc. Because there will be probably high need for the sustainable aviation fuels. Yes, it will increase. Some parameters changes, but linearity conserves. Yeah, continue. Okay. Yeah.
The general concept holds, but the parameters change.
Yeah.
Then I have a question regarding your system boundary. You look at this electricity going into the CO2-based electrolyzers. CO2 is very stable, so we need a lot of electricity here. I fully understand that. But you said that the CO2 is coming from two sources, from point sources. There we need a lot of purification because CO2 electrolyzers needs very pure CO2, or coming from direct air capture, which probably will increase in importance over time. And direct air capture also needs a lot of electricity. But you only model the electricity demand and stabilizations by batteries for the electrolyzers, but not for the direct air capture and not for the purification. Is this then the right system boundary?
Yeah, you are right. At the capture side, we didn't pay attention to the electricity consumed. Yeah, as you said, it will also have, it will also consume a lot of electricity probably. Yeah.
And it also needs stabilization, so also like probably batteries or whatever,
Exactly. Yeah, for now, we only focused on the electrolyzers and electricity consumed at the electrolyzers. Yeah, because of there were some sources that mention about the life cycle assessment of the syngas, and they always highlight that the electricity consumed at the electrolyzers will be highly determining at the carbon footprint level of the final product. So that is the reason we currently only focused on the electricity consumed at the electrolyzers. But yes, you are so right. Yeah, as a future research, we also focused on the life cycle assessment of this product. And in that case, we also want to focus on the capturing units, their electricity consumption, and etc. Currently, we only consider the cost of the capture, cost of installing capture units. However, not the electricity. Yes, as you say, the purification also will be important. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you look at life cycle assessment, that would also be one of my hints. Then it is very important also to look at the life cycle of the batteries. Yeah, because
Yes,
that
yes.
will also really make a big impact
Exactly.
if we can produce them climate neutral.
Yeah.
Only then it might make sense to have batteries large scale in such systems.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes.
I have one more question. I think, yes, we have enough time. You mentioned very shortly this Delphi method, and I already read it in your abstract. I was really looking forward to that, but then you didn't have time for that. Could you explain a little bit? Because in the work that you presented, I think it is very important that we do these stakeholder workshops, that we get in information from stakeholders into our work, because especially at our system level energy analysis and so on, we always tend to use publicly available data, and then we think we are experts and everything can be implemented. But I think stakeholder integration is very important. Can you talk a little bit how you did that and what implications you got out of that interaction?
Yeah, thank you very much for asking. Yes, since this is the new technology, it has challenges regarding environmental, economical, governmental, and etc. Many stakeholders are involved, and many discussions have arisen recently. So since we want to get more information from the experts, we employ an expert elicitation method, which was the Delphi method we employed, and we want to get the experts' opinion from the field, actually. So in this, Delphi method is based on making some rounds of this can be questionnaire or workshop, some rounds of getting experts' opinions and etc., asking them some questions, and until the consensus is reached, continuing these rounds of questions and etc. For example, we ask nearly 15 experts in the first round of the questionnaire. We conducted questionnaire. We asked them some questions and we get replies. We analyze that answers, and we, based on some consensus criteria, we analyze the answers. So for some answers, we didn't reach consensus. So we asked those questions again in the second round of the questionnaire to the same people. So we asked them, yes, this was the result of the first round questionnaire. Then what do you think about this question right now? For example, these questions are something like that. What do you think about the price of the electricity in the future? Do you think how much the renewable electricity investments will increase in the future? The penetration of the renewables in the grid, how they will increase, or etc., etc. These kind of questions regarding the supply chain. We ask them in the second round of questionnaire. Then we organize the workshop where we discussed all of the questions together with the same experts, and we again ask the questions that cannot reach consensus in the second round of questionnaire. So we try to have answers, common answers for some common questions by taking expert opinions. Yeah, and we wanted to have real data as much as we can. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much again. Very inspiring. I come to Maria's work, which I also very much liked. I have to apologize. I'm not an expert in blood supply chains at all, but I learned a lot. And what I learned before, I think the audience was allowed into Zoom room, is that Maria will continue this work at this organization, and she will implement what she developed during her PhD really in practice. So a very, very important topic and very, very relevant work. So I very much like that. I have my question is, my first question is about how did you approach this topic? Because the organization was only using reactive measures, and then you came and you worked with them, and first you had to convince them to also use proactive measures. You had to raise acceptance for an optimization model, which is always very, very challenging. Can you tell us a little bit how you approach this topic?
Yeah, thank you so much for your comments. Can you hear me? Yeah. So yes, they mostly use a reactive approach. They don't have these decision-making tools to schedule in advance. but we met with some of the decision makers of this organization, and they told us what they actually do. And they also make some changes to some of the upcoming collection sessions, but not in advance. So they have some that they know they can make one day in advance or one day or delay one day, and they make a call and they try to do those efforts in order to have the blood they need. But mostly it's not optimally. Of course, they just have some contacts, and they are well connected with some of the collection sessions, which are easier to change and modify. So they already do these changes. It's just that they don't have the decision support tool behind it to help make these changes more formal. I don't know if I made myself clear. So they want these tools. They actually think it's very important for them. They just don't know how to do it. So they have been doing it a little more like on top of the knee, like last minute changes. But they are very keen on having these tools implemented.
And they believe the results. So I could imagine that over the year, like over the different seasons, in winter, I think maybe you have more reactive solutions. In summer, maybe more proactive if you have not so many donors and so on. And that might, for people that never worked with these systems, might be a little bit, they have to be trained to trust the system.
Exactly. This is actually going to be the next step, where we are going to develop the tools for them to use, because they want us to test a lot of different scenarios to gain trust in the results. They want to test, well, but what if that collection session won't allow me to change? What would happen? They want to test themselves. So that's one of the reasons why we are developing these tools, because only after they test the tools and see the results and see how it would actually work, only after that they can think about implementing this. So they have not implemented anything that I have been developing yet, because we also already developed a model for the tactical planning for the 1 year in advance, where they make all these calendars and these staff allocations and assignments, and they like it. But their question was, okay, but in the day-to-day operations, it's nothing like that. All things are going to change. How can we do it? And now we have this model that I just present you. Okay, now we have the solution for that day-to-day operations. So it's a hard challenge, but I think with these small steps that we have been working with them, it's going to get there eventually, where they will be able to use these tools and optimize the supply chain.
In these models, we have there in the background, there are really important ethical questions. Yeah, how to value safety against cost and so on. How did you tackle that? Because as OR people, we usually we are used to have a cost factor and an objective function, and this is it. But this is really highly ethical. How did you treat that also as a researcher, not only in practice, but as a researcher, as an OR researcher?
Yeah, of course, that if we want to minimize costs, the plans developed would be completely different, but that's not the case, because it is the blood supply chain though. So we don't want to only minimize costs. Actually, we first of all want to meet the demand with the right blood products at the demand nodes. So that was always our first goal. And we did that by assigning extremely high penalty costs for unsatisfied demand in our model. So we actually don't have any unsatisfied demand in the results that we developed, but of course that is going to be always our first goal. And sorry, you asked a second question that I can't remember.
I think that was you. So you handled this ethical question mainly by very high penalties. But
very
you also
did
this sensitivity analysis for penalties, yeah?
Yeah, we also analyze that because of that bias, which is normal to have with the service level. Actually, our organization right now has very high inventory levels for like 15 days almost of upcoming demand, which leads to waste. And of course, our models also want to balance these high service level, these high inventory levels that are required to meet the demand requirements with the waste, because it is a perishable product. So we want to maybe meet halfway, maybe not 30 days, because they ideally they only would have for 7 days, but because they don't plan it so much in advance, they end up having for 13 days. So we need to find this balance between the safety stocks, which are also very important to meet the demand. So it's these two things, have heavy penalties for meeting demand and also heavy penalties for not meeting the safety stock targets, which should also be studied and analyzed with them.
Okay, thank you. Paula, I hope we have another 5 minutes.
We only have a couple of minutes left, but we'll jump to Kelly for. We'll just sorry, Kelly, that we're almost close on time.
No, it's fine.
Kelly, also from my side, thank you very much. The topic that you present at CCUS is a very important one, and will gain a lot of importance in the future. We had not so much time to look at your model, but I read in your abstract that you use a 2-period model.
Yeah.
What we are using a lot and what we saw from Özlem is these long-term development models where we have different investment decisions over time. Why did you decide for a 2-period model, and why do you think that you can model these complex decisions over time with the 2-period model and also with the 2-stakeholder model?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, my research method is the analytical modeling approach. And for my method, we need to derive the closed form solutions. So for the reason why I choose 2-period, the one reason is because it is more easy for me to derive the closed form solution. And another reason is that I think the 2-period model can somehow capture the feature of multi-period. Because in the first period, we suppose the manufacturer, they make the decision about the investment. And in the second period, it can enjoy the benefits of this CCUS technology. And if we extend it into the third period, the fourth period, actually, they are very similar. So I think the 2-period mode can somehow capture the feature of multi-period. And of course, it will be better if we can apply it into the multi-period. I will try to do it in my extension, but in the basic model, the main task is to derive the closed form solution and to do the analysis. And for the multi-period, maybe we can use some numerical analysis to do that.
And maybe also the question about 2 players against a complete system, because we have different CCUS technologies, we have different manufacturers with different costs and so on. How you think that this can be transferred?
Yes, actually, I model 3 stakeholders. One is the CCUS provider and who provide this kind of service, and another is manufacturer, and we also have the government. The government will make the policy about the carbon tax or the subsidy, something like this. And the reason I do not consider the competition, the competing manufacturer in the basic model is also because we want to derive the closed form solution. But in the extension, I will extend it into the competing scenario. Actually, we that in the extension part. I will show you more details maybe in the Euro conference.
Thank you, Kelly.
Okay.
Thank you, Grace.
Thank you very much.
I really thoroughly enjoyed all those discussions and presentations this morning. And I think Grit is right. We're really only scratching the surface. It's very difficult for you to present all of your wonderful work in 10 minutes. I'm very comfortable that in the future, the subject matter experts for our webinars will be some of our young women that we have in the pipeline here in our OR community today. Really, really interesting presentations. I don't know anything about the blood sector either. I just want to wish Maria in particular best of luck next week. So she let us know that she's taking her Viva next week. So we have our fingers crossed. Based on your presentation, Maria, we're looking forward to seeing the outcome for that. If I could ask our people who are still here, if you'd like to turn on your camera and we'll just take a screenshot. And while we're doing that, maybe Nuncia, you'd take some screenshots for us. Just a little reminder that we will have another YoungWomen4OR webinar in May. So we don't have the exact date yet, but it will be on multi-objective optimization and fair allocation. So Grit asked some questions there about ethics and balancing the stakeholders' needs. So some of that may come up in our next webinar in May. So do keep an eye for the details of that. We will be at Euro, so we have a workshop we're planning at Euro and presentations by definitely Özlem and Kelly and possibly Maria, we'll see, and some of our other young women who are here today. And then we have 2 further webinars in the autumn and our winter webinar. So do keep an eye on our channels for what's coming up. And just to also flag, we are now pushing along our research, so a gender lens on operations research. So more about that coming soon. So Nuncia, I've lost you on my screen. There you are. If you wouldn't mind taking a screenshot. I want to say a huge thank you to our speakers today. It can be a little bit nerve-wracking, but this is a friendly audience here. I really enjoyed your presentations. A very special thank you to all my Wisdom Committee members who help get all of this work done. And a huge thank you to Grit today for her time, but also her insights. It was a wonderful session today. So Nuncia, have I forgotten anything? We're all okay? Thank you everybody for joining us today, and hope to see you again at some future OR events. Thank you everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye bye.
Thank you.